I'm Tonya McGrath, host of the PowerPLAY Show. Next, my guest, a critical thinker, a man of God, one of the two smartest men I know, and a published author, discusses his book, Adult Conversations. Oh, and he's my dad. My conversation with Robert Collins Sr. Next on the PowerPLAY Show.
From the studios at Hull Bay Productions, this is the PowerPLAY.
Welcome to the PowerPLAY Show. I'm your host, Tonya McGrath. My guest today is, among other things, a critical thinker, a man of God, one of the two smartest men I know, and a published author. In his book, Adult Conversations, my guest today introduces a concept that he lives by, which helps in communicating in any situation. He writes, quote, "By learning more about the different egos and focusing on listening, I vastly improved my communication with others." His book was based on something he read decades ago, What Do You Say After You Say Hello by Eric Berne, and it changed his life. Well, my guest today will break down this very simple technique to vastly improve any communication you have in any relationship. I'm so happy to introduce to you my guest this week, Robert Collins Sr. Oh yeah, and he's also my dad. Dad, welcome to the PowerPLAY Show.
Thank you very much, Tonya. I appreciate you having me here. I'm humble and respectful of your time, opportunity.
So first, you are in the Virgin Islands. How is everything down there? How's the pandemic? How's reopening? How's everything going down there?
It's going good. We have been very fortunate in not having too many cases of COVID-19, and things are starting to open up. Tourists are starting to come back, and everything looks good. Everything is starting to brighten up.
Well, I'm so glad you took the time to be on the show this week, because this is also the week of Father's Day. So happy early Father's Day to you. As we start, Dad, just give an audience a brief overview of the concept of adult conversations.
The name is misleading because some people, when they hear the name, they might think of something lewd or something like that. But actually, we all have three ego states. And as Bernie put it out in his book, we have to be in one of those ego states at any given time. The real purpose is just to identify what ego state you're in and why, what prompted. For example, one of the examples he gives early in his book, you could be watching a young kid riding down the street on a skateboard down a hill, and your parent will react, "Hey, be careful, you could get hurt." Your child ego could react, "That looks like a lot of fun, I would love to do it." But your adult will react, "I'm too old to be doing that kind of stuff. I don't want to fall down, bust my head in." So that's a quick example. In his book, he gave how he developed it and why. In my book, I just give more examples to how it's practical and how you can use it in an everyday going on situation.
Well, let's go into some of those examples. And I want to start with the first one that you write in your book, and that's about abusing alcohol. Because you and I are both now sober after many years of drinking, and it never occurred to me until I went back and read the book this weekend that, of course, when you're intoxicated or high or whatever you're doing, you absolutely are in your child. So talk about that a little bit more.
Yes, the child ego is your emotions, and your emotions come into play when you're high or when you're drinking. You're not in your normal state of mind, so to speak, and alcohol and drugs will alter that state of mind. And this is one of the reasons why I quit drinking, why I quit doing drugs, because I could see the influence it had on people around me, especially my family. And so whenever you drink, you automatically change the ego state you're in and you go into your child. And a lot of people will use that as an excuse for child abuse, for spouse abuse, for personal abuse. And there's really no excuse for it. And a lot of people have trouble communicating when they're sober, let alone when they're high.
Yeah.
So I decided this is not for me, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So that was my adult taking precedent over my life and saying, okay, let's stop this behavior.
And how many years has it been, Dad?
It's been about 25, maybe 30 years since I last had a drink or did drugs. Maybe longer, but in that range.
I'm coming up on my 4 years.
Wow.
So,
Great, yeah, that's great.
I'm excited about
But
that.
let me just give you a brief overview of the three ego states.
Okay.
The parent and child are developed from when we're young. We from watching our parents or adults, and it's like a video that we internalize. The adult, and that's from like age 0 to 7. The adult is what we develop on our own when we start reading and learning through experiences. And reading is one of the best ways to develop the adult. Unfortunately, a lot of people go through life and never develop the adult. They only have a strong parent and child.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a police officer, they have a very strong parent. And they tell you to stop. They tell you to go. They tell you to do this and do that. That's the parent. That's how they develop. A comedian, his job is to hook the child in us because his lifeblood depends on him making you laugh. And if he doesn't hook that child, he's not going to make any money. So that's his job, is to hook the child in you. And the adult is the one that rationalizes, analyzes. He tries to come up with the best solution to any given situation. So that's the one that really you have to develop and work at in order to get a good communication situation going and keeping it there.
One of the chapters I love, and you just touched on this a little bit, is the one on wisdom. And you reference 1 Kings 4:29, and God gave Solomon wisdom and exceedingly great understanding and largeness of heart like the sand on the seashore. Why is wisdom so important in developing your adult?
Good question. You know, if we don't use wisdom, God gave us wisdom. Jesus Christ is wisdom. And if we don't use that wisdom, then we're going to default to our emotions, get angry, get upset about certain things. So we're going to default to, hey, it got to be my way or the highway, you know, that kind of mentality. And you can't communicate effectively with another person if you're going to go that route. Wisdom will tell you, hey, what's going on in this situation? How can we best resolve this situation? Is there some kind of medium ground? It doesn't mean you have to compromise your way of believing. It just means you want to keep the communication open and alive. And the reason this is so important, Tonya, I had a friend. He was maybe married 35, 40 years. And we were walking on the road one day, and I said something to my wife this morning, and she's so mad at me. I don't know what I said, but worst of all, I don't know what to do about it. And I'm thinking, I have an idea what happened. You probably said something that hooked her child, got her mad. Or you said something that hooked her parent, and she don't want to hear that. I said, but I could tell you about it. And it will go in one ear and out the other. So that's when I decided I'm going to put this in a book because I see this situation over and over. People don't realize where they slipped and made a mistake. And so that communication automatically is cut. And they have no way of trying to know how to fix it.
And so, where does like apology and forgiveness fall in your concept of parent, adult, child?
Good question. I was walking down the street with my wife not long ago, and I said something to her. All of a sudden, I realized she was upset, and I didn't realize what I said to get her upset. I said, sweetheart, did I say something to offend you? She said, yes, you called me cheap. I said, oh my goodness. I didn't mean to call her cheap. What I meant was to call her thrifty. But the wrong word came out of my mouth, and she got upset. So I apologized. I realized my mistake. My mistake was that I used the wrong word. So I was able easily to apologize. I said, look, sweetheart, that was not my intention. I didn't mean to call you cheap. I meant to call you thrifty because of this situation. So it helps you be able to apologize easier, because once you realize your mistake, it's easy to go in there and fix it.
You also have this part of your book where you talk about politicians, and I can very, very well see that most politicians act in their child all the time, particularly our last administration and Mr. Trump. So, how does that hinder like how we need to kind of just work as a society, work as a government, when everyone is in their child pretty much 98% of the time?
Well, in reality, they're in both their parent and their child. In this concept, the parent and child can communicate endlessly. They can go on and on. It's the adult that cannot communicate with either the parent or child. And that's a good example that you just mentioned with Trump. He has a very strong parent. It's my way. You do it. This is what I want you to do. And when the people don't react the way he wants, he gets mad that he slips into his child. He gets angry. He will fire them in a heartbeat. He will cuss them out, calls them all kind of stuff, and on and on and on. And unfortunately, in our Congress, it's the same way. You got Republicans and you got Democrats. And the Republicans are in their parent. I want it done this way. And the Democrats might say, well, look, this is the best solution for our infrastructure. Let's build these bridges, give people jobs. No, we want to do it this way. And if we can't do it this way, we're not going to pass a bill. So they're not really looking at the picture. They're just sticking with their parent or their child, their egos. They get upset, they get mad, they want to pull the rug out from underneath you, take your ball and bat and quit, so to speak. It's happening all the time.
All the time. Chapter 32 in your book talks about honoring your father and mother, and you shall have long life, which is based on Ephesians 6, verses 2 and 3. What style of communications did your mother and father have? First, let's talk about Grandpa.
My father taught me how to read. So, in essence, he had a strong adult without even realizing it. When I used to see my father sit down and read all the time, I used to think, what's in these books? Why? But unfortunately, he's also from that era where drinking was pervasive. That's what they did in the 50s and 60s. And so all their parents, our generation, they used to drink a lot and smoke a lot. So even though I believe he had a lot of wisdom in it, and I still do, the drinking altered that wisdom. It distorted it, so to speak. When my father was sober, he was the most wonderful person to be around. And he used to be very responsible, work every day, bring us home our bread and butter, so to speak, our sneakers, our clothes. He was very responsible. And that's the adult. He knew what he had to do. But before he got married, he used to be like a gambler. He used to hustle, shoot pool, and that's all part of, I guess, developing, the child. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to, Mm-hmm. But he managed to develop that adult on his own, and that's what helped me get into reading. It's a treasure I'll never forget.
And your mom, what kind of communication style did she have?
She had a strong parent. She did not play. When it comes time to doing things, if you didn't do things the way she said it, she would get upset. parent and child hand in hand. And she will tell you to do things, and if you don't do it, you better, hit the high, so to speak. And I remember once I disagreement with one of my siblings, one of my sisters. And after I thought I squashed that situation by beating up my sister, by setting her straight, I left the house. When I came back, my mother, who was standing behind the door with a baseball bat, took a swing at me, and I ducked. I said, "Mom, are you upset about something?" She was so mad. She said, "Don't ever put your hands on one of my daughters." I said, "Oh," but after I explained the scenario around it, she kind of understood, but she still was adamant. There's no excuse for, me slipping into my child and becoming violent like I did. So my mother had a very strong parent. And don't get me wrong, it's appropriate to have these different ego states. Sometimes it's very appropriate to have a parent. It's very appropriate to be in your child. When you're scared or you're hurt or you're having a bad time, it's okay to cry. You lose a loved one, it's okay. This is normal. It's the key to this tool is just recognizing why you're in a certain ego state, and what prompted. That is so key.
You just mentioned your incident with my aunt, and you also talk about how to treat women in your book. You have an example of that and why that part is important. So talk a little bit about that. I think it was an example of a young man, and he would not show up or disappear for, days on end and not communicate with his significant other. So why is treating women such an important part of your concept?
Well, remember when Trump got caught on an interview with, he was talking about women in the most derogatory sense?
Yes.
Well, that goes to the heart of it, that is very disrespectful, and women are very, very important part of the society. They're probably the glue that holds the society together. So you can't disrespect, by talking bad, saying one thing and then doing another. For example, in that particular story, I'm trying to recall it as I'm speaking to you. I believe the guy told the young lady, "Hey, I will be over on such and such time," and all of a sudden she didn't hear from him for days or weeks on end. And then when he finally showed up, it was like, "Hey, I'm here." Like she was supposed to be so happy that he's here, but where have you been? No credible explanation, and that's so disrespectful. You cannot have a relationship built on distrust, dishonesty, stuff like that. And this is what was going on in that particular story. He was not dependable. That's his child, He was not reliable. He was not trustworthy. These are all part of the child ego, where you think you can do anything you want and get away with it, which is not good.
And it goes both ways. I mean, I have to catch myself sometimes when, Greg is working on a project, like he redid our kitchen last year, and it took 4 months. He did a great job, yes. And it took 4 months. And every day I'm like, and this man is working full time, and then he's coming home to renovate this amazing kitchen that I have. But I would catch myself at times saying stuff like, "Well, when is this going to be ready? Well, when is this going to be ready?" So it kind of goes both ways, because what I realized what I was doing is I was not being an adult. I was being very much a child because it was my impatience. I was allowing myself to get angry with the process, even though I wasn't doing anything, right? So the whole thing, it has to go, it's men treating women, but it's also women really treating and being able to respect men as well.
For this communication tool to really work in a relationship, both parties need to understand it and read it, because if only one party understands this concept, it's not going to work, because the other person is not going to have any idea what they're doing wrong or why. And like you said, you caught yourself. You was able to understand why you were being impatient as part of the child. So this skill, for it really to be effective in a relationship, both people in the relationship should have read it and understood it to some kind of concept. When I first met my wife, we used to have problems communicating. And I told her about the concept. She read it, she understood it, and it solved a lot of problems, because she is a school teacher by nature, and she had a very strong parent. She used to come home and tell me, don't put your clothes here, don't do this, how come the dishes aren't done? You know, parent, everything she told me. And I said, listen, sweetheart, I don't react to the parent that well. I react to the adult. If you said to me the same thing, hey, Robin, what would you think about putting your clothes where they belong as opposed to just laying all over the floor like they are? I will react to that much better, because now she's addressed my adult, you know? Or if you have some free time, would you mind, clearing up these dishes or something? And if it, I can react to that, but don't tell me, hey, do this and do that, because there's no reaction. So it works best when both parties knows about this skill.
You have a lot of biblical references in this book as well. Why is that part so important to really kind of understanding this concept?
Well, it's understanding what God is to me. I realize that this concept is good. It's not a spiritual concept, but also it says in the Bible, we perish from lack of knowledge, and that knowledge could come from anywhere. And in this case, this knowledge came to me through this book, like you quoted already. What do you say after you say hello? So I wanted to give God glory, because he literally saved my life. So I try to use him in every chapter, to introduce every book in my every chapter in my book to give the glory back to him, because if it wasn't for what he did in my life, he saved my life so many times. And it's for what purpose? I keep asking myself, why? And then I realize, so I can bring the glory back to him. I can give him back the glory, because within myself, I can't do nothing. But because he brought this concept to me and allowed me to share it with other people, I said, let me give him the glory in this mix, because he deserves it.
Yes,
he's very important. He saved my life so many times. I can't. If I were to start counting, I would use the rest of my time right here on this interview. I wanted to mention another story. One of the very first stories I wrote about, I thought was so profound, because I told you the adults usually develop, on our own after age 7, but even kids can have a strong adult. And the example I used, one of the first stories I wrote, was about my daughter Annette. Mm-hmm. I went to school to pick her up, and she was only 5 years old. And a guy came to my car, said, hey, I have some books, nice children books. Would you like some? I said, no, thank you. And he says, come on, they're really cheap and they're good. You're going to love them. So to try to dissuade him, I said, look, I don't have any money. And I started to drive off. He said, that's not a problem. Give you the books for your car. So I laughed and I started to drive off. And Annette stopped me. She said, but Dad, why didn't you take the deal? I said, what deal? Why didn't you trade your books for the car? I said, do you really think that would have been a good deal? She said, yes. Books will take you anywhere you want to go. I said, wow. Look at that wisdom. That's wisdom. And 5 years old. So even kids can, have this adult in them. And that was a good example. And I thought, this is important to develop,
Absolutely. After you and Mom divorced, Kia, my sister, and I spent summers with you, and that was probably some of the best times of my life. However, one of the funniest moments you and I shared when I was probably, I think, 7 or 8 years old, and I was trying to earn some extra money doing chores for you. And one particular chore actually almost cost you your life. Tell that story, which is in your book.
That was so funny. And I want to mention this before I tell that story. When you were first, you are my first and my dearest, And when you was young, you said something. I can't remember the detail, Tony. I wish I could. But you were sitting there. You couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 at the time. And you said something to me that changed the way I thought about a certain situation. And I had thought about this situation in my whole life. But you said something, and you said, Dad, how come such and such, such and such? And like I said, I can't remember the details, but I do remember the effect it had on me. And I looked at you, and I said, wow, this is not something. She, in just this total moment of clarity, changed my whole way of thinking. But let me tell you.
You have some brilliant daughters.
Yeah, I do. I sure do. Let me tell you about the story, though. I said, I went to work one day, and I was a technician. I worked in the field. And I'm walking down the street, and I slipped. Boom. I said, wow. Looked on the ground, didn't see nothing. I'm walking again, and I slipped again. I said, but what's wrong with me? I haven't been drinking. What's going on? So finally, I slipped one more time. I said, no, that's it. I looked under my shoes, and I realized I had shoe polish on the bottom of my shoes. And I remember now, I told my daughter, I said, you want to earn some extra money? Polish my shoes. But she took it literally, polished the whole shoe. You took it to the extreme. Polished my whole, she polished the bottom, everything. And consequently, I couldn't blame her because I wasn't, more specific, and
No, I remember you saying something like, and you better do a good job. So I think I really took my time polishing every single piece of that shoe. You came home and you were like, I don't know what's going on today. I was sliding all over the place. And then I looked at the bottom of my shoe and you polished the bottom of my shoe. And I said, yes, Dad.
That's what I do too. That was good.
That's a great memory, and thank you for including that in the book. That was pretty amazing.
Well, let me tell you something. You and your sister Kia, you talk about you had a great time. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. That was one of the best times in my life. When you used to come down every summer and spend the summers with me, I used to learn so much. And you guys, you challenged me. You took me, to the hill. I wish I knew this concept at that time because you got away with stuff that you probably wouldn't now. But it was one of the best times of my life. I'll treasure it forever. Believe me.
It's one memory I have, and I think I was at camp and I got caught swearing or something like that, and they had to kick me out for a couple of days. And you weren't the traditional punisher. What you did is you dropped me off at the Main Street Library, and you made me read the book Oh my gosh, I can't remember it right now. It's going to come to me. But that was your punishment for me. And so when you talk about how your dad passed on reading to you, that was kind of your subliminal way of passing along reading to me, because I got in trouble a lot as a young kid.
Yeah.
And I was always the fountainhead. I knew it was going to come to me.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And so I
I made you read The Fountainhead
Yeah.
at that age?
I was
Wow.
like 12. I think I was like 12.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got
Uh-huh.
kicked out of camp because I was swearing at people. And
That's one of the. It's funny you mentioned that book because that's one of the most amazing books I ever read.
yes.
And if it wasn't for the Bible, that would have been my Bible, So, yeah, that's an amazing book. And I'm glad that I took that approach, because you said a traditional approach, spanking kids and, making them, put them on punishment, that's not effective sometimes, especially if you do it when you're angry or mad. It's not effective at all. So I'm glad I took that approach and, brought you to the and said, okay, you want to swear while you're reading this book.
In this hot library with no air conditioning.
Right.
But yeah, that's something I will always remember. The Power Play Show ends with asking our guests 3 questions. And as we enter into Father's Day weekend, my first question is, who's your favorite child? No, I'm kidding.
It's funny. All my children ask me that.
No, my real first question is, what is one lesson your father passed along to you that is still resonant with you today?
Good question. He taught me not to gamble, because he said, if you can't, I remember my first time, we used to gamble, we used to have poker nights when I was growing up. And I used to thought I was good at it because he showed me a lot of stuff. And when I got my first job, I took my whole paycheck. I went home. I said, come on, Dad, let's play some poker. Well, needless to say, he cleaned me out, took every penny that I had. And afterwards, I said, Dad, okay, can I have my money back? He said, well, here. He gave me $15 for bus fare and lunch for the following week. He said, the rest is mine. If you can't afford to lose it, don't gamble. And that was a profound lesson he taught me, and I'm so glad he did because I don't gamble.
My second question is, you have given us, your children, many, many lessons, but what is the one thing you want us to always, always practice?
Have faith in God. Being honest, even when that being honest is going to cost you, or you might think it will have a negative impact. Be honest, because honesty, if you can, there's a phrase that says, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Well, I believe that, you don't want to say something, even though it may be the truth, you don't want to say something that's going to be hurtful, just for the sake of hurting someone. Who made you the judge?
Right.
Who made you the judge? But be honest, if someone asks you a question, try to give an honest answer. If someone, and what I love about my children, they don't hold their tongue. I remember I was with you and Kia, and I came to Boston. We all had a little lunch together, and I mentioned that I had bought a piano, and Kia says, "Oh no, there goes my inheritance." Well, that made me. It was so honest, It was so good, and so yeah, always be honest, and and keep that love and keep your faith.
My third is, when you think about what it means to be a father, what comes to mind?
Well, one of the things that's coming to mind lately is an inheritance. You know, I want to leave a legacy, an inheritance for my children. Because the Bible says leave a legacy to the second and third generation. I want to be that kind of father. And that's another reason why I wrote a book, because I want for my children to be able to see me even when I'm not here, to be able to go someplace and read about me. And that's what other people do, you know. They leave a legacy for their children. They write a book, you know. And this is one of the things I want to pass on to my children. I want to encourage them to do the same thing to their children, because life goes on and life keeps getting better. And sure, we have crises facing us like climate change, but you can fix it. My children can fix it. I may not be here, but I want to know life is going to continue. And with that in mind, I want you to have the resources, you know, and the opportunities, you know, to pursue these resources. And I want you to have a better life than I have. And not that I didn't have a good life. I had a great life, but I want yours to be even greater.
That's great, Dad. Thank you so much. Tell folks where they can buy your book.
That's a good question. You can buy it on Amazon. You can go to Amazon and look at my book. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Adult Conversation. And it's in Spanish now also. So in case you have any listeners that's fluent in Spanish, you can also get it in Spanish. It's, so that's probably the most opportune place to get it is Amazon.
That's great. And we'll put the link on our website at thepowerplayshow.com. Dad, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom again. And I love you. Have a happy Father's Day.
Thank you, Tonya. I love you too. And thank you for thinking about me. I appreciate it.
Remember, you can listen to past episodes of The PowerPLAY Show wherever you subscribe to podcasts, including iTunes, iHeartRadio, and now Pandora Podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Simply search the Hull Bay Productions Media channel and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And as always, we air each and every Saturday at 5 p.m. on BroncoEyeRadio.com. So be sure to tune into the PowerPLAY Show for a new episode each Thursday wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or on YouTube at Hull Bay Productions Media channel, or simply visit thepowerplayshow.com. As many of you may heard, I am in development of my second film, More Than Our Skin. Here is the latest trailer featuring one of the extraordinary women who will help tell this important story. It is my pleasure to introduce to you, Alicia.
Great friends, but you always have the bullies. So there was one in particular. It was VK, and he was awful. He was 2 years older than me. I think anytime he passed me in the hallway, he called me Spot, like any chance he got. And he, there was a few. He was the worst. So I'll just focus on him. But, I remember one time we were walking home in the park and he grabbed my winter coat and threw it in the dumpster just to be a jackwagon. and it was just, he's like, go get it, Spot. And my sister wasn't there. So I had to go get it. And it was like, what, why? Just because I look different. And Spot was definitely the nickname that everybody gave me, and that was hard to hear. I felt whole, and if someone is meeting somebody for the first time and doesn't have that validation, then they're still going to have that empty feeling. They're still going to have that I don't belong feeling. And how stupid is that? Like, you're coming into a community because they look like you, and know what you're feeling. And then if somebody says, well, your spots aren't as bad, that's so insulting and so horrible. I had that happen to me at a conference in Detroit because they said, oh, I don't even see your vitiligo. And it's like, I'm at a vitiligo conference. What? Like, it is. It's, you know, you want to feel included because we haven't been included. They feel what it is like to have vitiligo. That it is more than our skin, and that there's highs and lows with it. There's also good things. I've met incredible people because of my vitiligo that I never would have met in my life, ever. I never would have went to Detroit. I never went to DC like that. You know, I never would have met these people and connected. You know, it's crazy because I have a second family that I'll always have, and it's precious.
If you're so inclined, please visit morethanourskin.org and learn more about the film, the incredible stories we will share, and leave a donation to help the making of this film. Independent filmmakers rely on the generosity of people like you who believe in the stories we help to share with the world. And I thank you for your support. Until next time, I'm Tonya McGrath. Be well. And to all the fathers out there, have a wonderful, happy Father's Day.